Hello, and welcome. You know, you see all these headlines about tensions in the Middle East, fluctuating oil prices, and it all feels pretty distant, doesn't it? Well, in the next few minutes, we're going to connect those global events directly to the one place that hits home the hardest, your wallet.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with a bit of a temporary truce that calmed the markets before we dive into the massive fuel shock that's heading our way. Then we'll see how that spills over into your grocery bill, look at the tough spot the Reserve Bank is in, and finally get to the bottom of why South Africa is so vulnerable to all of this.
All right, so our story begins with what really looked like good news. A 5-day truce was announced in the Middle East, and you could almost hear a collective sigh of relief from the global markets.
And the effect was instant. Look at that. Brent Crude oil dropped from its peak, and hey, our rand even strengthened a little bit against the dollar. For just a moment there, it honestly felt like we might have just dodged a major bullet.
But here's the twist. While we were all watching oil, the price of gold, which is a massive earner for South Africa, took a serious dive. So that cushion, that revenue that helps pay the country's bills, it just got a whole lot smaller. And that's where the good news really starts to fade.
Right.
Because even with that temporary dip in the oil price, we are still staring down the barrel of a really, really big problem right here at home.
And this is the question on everyone's mind, isn't it? If the global oil price came down, why on earth are we about to get slammed with one of the biggest fuel hikes in recent memory?
Well, the answer is all about the timing and, the math behind the scenes. Our fuel price isn't based on what oil costs on a single day. Nope, it's based on the average price for the entire month. So that big price spike from earlier in March, that so-called war premium, it's already locked in. It's baked into the calculation, and that bill is coming due.
And the result is this, just a staggering number. A projected hike of R810 a liter for diesel. And let me tell you, this isn't just about trucks on the highway. This is the lifeblood of our farms, our factories, our entire economy.
And for every single person with a car, it's a direct punch to the gut. We're looking at a projected 5 Rand per liter increase for petrol. That is a huge, huge blow to household budgets, and it's set to land on April 1st.
Okay, so now let's follow the chain reaction. Because a fuel shock never just stays at the pump. It always ripples outwards. And one of the first and hardest hit sectors is our food supply.
The timing for our farmers couldn't be worse. They're getting ready for winter planting, and they're facing what's basically a triple threat. First, there's not enough diesel to go around. Some co-ops are already rationing it. Second, fertilizer costs are going through the roof because of the very same global issues. And third, since about 80% of our grain gets moved by trucks, those transport costs are about to explode.
And all of this creates what some people are calling a double tax on you, the consumer. Think about it. First, you pay more because it costs the farmer more to grow the food. Then you pay again because it costs more to truck that food to the store. It's a classic 1-2 punch that goes straight to your grocery bill.
So, as you can imagine, all this pressure lands right at the feet of the South African Reserve Bank. And honestly, they are caught between a rock and a hard place, walking an incredibly fine line.
Here's their dilemma in a nutshell. On the one hand, our economy is struggling, so there's huge pressure to cut interest rates to give everyone some relief. But on the other hand, they have to fight this massive wave of inflation coming in from overseas. And if they cut rates, the rand could weaken, which would just make all those imports even more expensive.
See, what the bank is desperately trying to prevent is something called secondary round effects. It's just a fancy term for when the fuel price problem stops being just about fuel and starts pushing up the price of everything else. Food, transport, you name it. That's when inflation can really get out of control.
And this is basically the dashboard they're looking at every single day. You've got a volatile oil price, a declining gold price, and thank goodness, a stable power grid for now. Every single one of these indicators plays into their next move. It's a serious balancing act.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question. Why? Why are we so vulnerable? Why does a conflict happening thousands of kilometers away hit our pockets so hard and so fast?
Well, the tough truth is, this is a weakness we kind of built for ourselves over time. We've shifted from refining our own fuel to just importing most of it. A whopping 70% of our diesel arrives here as a finished product, often passing through one of the most volatile shipping lanes in the world. And the cherry on top? We sold off our strategic fuel reserves back in 2016.
And that quote really says it all. We're living on a razor's edge. The result of those past decisions is that we have a safety buffer of just 2 weeks. 2.
It means our entire national security, our economy, is at the mercy of global sea routes. So when you look at that extreme vulnerability, the only responsible move for the Reserve Bank right now is to hold the line. They have to hold interest rates steady. Cutting them would be a massive gamble that could weaken the rand and just throw more fuel on this inflationary fire. Their main job is to protect that inflation target.
And that really leaves us with a final, crucial question to think about. We become pretty good at lurching from one crisis to the next. But in a world that only seems to be getting more unstable, is simply managing the next crisis good enough? Or is it finally time to have a much bigger, more fundamental conversation about our national energy security? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.